another live session. Good evening, everyone. Let's take this opportunity to say hello to each other and welcome to TalentSprint. I would take this opportunity to wish everyone a very, very happy new year. Hello, everyone out there. I'm expecting some of you to say hello to each other. So I can see Shubham is there, Rohan is there. So how many of us are out actually there waiting for the session to start? Happy New Year to you too, Rohan. Hi, Shubhan. Hi, Vinay. Okay, now that we see quite a few of us are out there, let's start the session for the day. With interviews round the corner, a lot of you are excited, preparing, wondering what to do, what not to do for the IBPS interviews. So today's session is dedicated to interview preparation. Now, we are all usually very concerned about what to say in an interview, what not to say, whether the answer that you give is appropriate or inappropriate. Is there a particular right answer that the interviewee is expecting? Will one answer fetch you more marks? Will a certain answer fetch you less marks? When we do all this, in the middle of this, somehow we forget a very, very important aspect of the interview process. Something that we know as the interview etiquette. We must remember that it is not only what you say, young boys and girls, but also the way you present yourself, how you say it, your body language, the gestures that you make during the course of the interview, that play a major role in ensuring that you actually get selected in the interview and you make it to the list of the selected candidates. So today's session, boys and girls, is going to be based on exactly that, and we are going to be seeing what are the things that we should ensure, how is the way that we should behave so that we ensure that our performance in an interview is top-notch. So we'll be proceeding with the session like that. Towards the end of the session, we will be taking some questions if you guys have, and we will be discussing those questions. So let's start with the session for the day. Okay, so interview etiquette. The word etiquette is actually a French word that says how you should behave. What is your body language? What are the gestures that you should have? The interview is a place where you have to convince your interviewer that you are the best possible candidate whom he or she can actually hire. Now, the interview is actually like a branding and a marketing process where you have to market yourself, where you have to prove to the interviewer that out of the 100 people available out there, you are probably one of those 2 or 3 candidates whom he or she should be choosing. A lot of candidates out there think that, I don't really need to prepare for an interview. I'm good, I'm smart. I think I'll just manage. No. This is a strong myth that we have. We need to realize that competition out there is really, really strong. And everything that you do once you have stepped inside the room is under scrutiny. So everything has to be more than perfect. Now, before you actually reach your interview, your preparations start well in advance. Honestly, the minute you come to know that you have an interview scheduled for a certain day, it is from that very moment that your preparation starts. Your preparation starts with doing your research about the company. Let's say, for example, if you are going for a bank interview in Punjab National Bank, you should do your research about the company, starting with when was the bank established. The name of the bank will be enough to tell you whether it's a public sector bank or it's a private sector bank. Who heads the bank currently? And some more important facts about the bank that will convince the interviewer that you are very, very interested in getting this job. Second, prepare your questions. Often when we walk into an interview, we have some questions in our mind. So frame those questions well, think about them. Remember that there is nothing wrong in asking questions in an interview, but they should be well framed. Third, Make sure that you know where your interview location is, how long will you take to actually reach to your destination, so that you reach well in time. Figure out your mode of conveyance, how you would be traveling, and keep good half an hour extra in your hand, because in case you get stuck in traffic, rain, you don't get a vehicle, you still make it in time. Now, fourth, coordinate your wardrobe and portfolio. How you present yourself is extremely important. You may be a really good candidate, but if you reach your interview dressed shabbily, your shirt half tucked in, half out, your hair not combed in a proper way, you're perspiring, your shoes are not polished, all that does not give a very good impression to the person who is interviewing you. Look your best. Have a smile. Remember, a smile is something that is going to ensure that you look your best. And please work your time schedule out in such a way that you reach well within the time for the interview. Now, they often say that the first impression is the last impression. So right from the time when you actually step into the interview room, your impression has to be top notch. You have to ensure that you are nothing short of perfect. So the first way, dress. The way you dress is the strongest way to convey your seriousness, to convey your personality. The way you dress is the best way to actually convey your Can you guys see the video? Because I've just got a message from someone who says that the video has stopped. If you guys can still see the video, if you can see the presentation that is there on the screen, please say hello. If you can't, then please say no. Can you see the screen or can you not see the screen? Because we have a message from someone who says that, okay, so Shubham has reiterated the fact that the screen shared that the presentation is visible to everybody. So I will carry on. Okay. So like I said, the way you dress is the strongest way to convey your personality, your seriousness, and to cast the first impression on the person who is actually interviewing you. The way you dress shows how keen you are for success, whether you are trustworthy, whether you are suitable for a certain job or not. So then this brings us to the question that exactly how should we dress? Are there certain do's and don'ts? Is there a certain dress code that is preferred more than another dress code? So let's discuss that. It is advisable that you stick towards the conservative style of dressing. Boys, it is advised that you wear shirt with tucked in trousers and a belt. The belt, starting with the color of your trousers, the trousers should be a grey, black, brown, blue, beige. Avoid bright colors like, let's say, maroon or a yellow or a pink, red. Please avoid such bright colors. Your belt should be a smart belt with not a very big buckle, and again blue, brown, black, the usual neutral colors. Your shirt should be ironed and well tucked in. Your hair, if you have long hair, please ensure you comb it well and use gel, oil, whatever to set it. Your shoes should be well polished. And ensure that, boys, you do not wear any flashy piece of jewelry, though of course a watch is always welcome. Coming to girls. Girls, it is always advisable that you stick to the conservative style of dressing. Jeggings, leggings and jeans are a big no. A nice salwar kameez with a dupatta is always advisable, and yes, please do not forget to wear a dupatta. Your hair should not look sloppy. It should be well tied, well pinned up. Then avoid any flashy colors, any mirror work, any loud piece of jewelry. In and all, you should be smartly dressed. Your shoes can be open toes, closed toes, whatever you are comfortable in. You may or may not wear heels depending on how comfortable you are in them. Then, make sure that your clothes are well ironed, because they cast a very good impression on someone. Imagine someone who's dressed sloppily and someone who's dressed smart. Obviously, you will be more interested, more keen to speak to someone who's well dressed. Okay, then control your interview nerves. It is very evident that when we walk into an interview, we are nervous, we are we are apprehending what's going to happen in the future. So therefore, please, all possible signs that actually go on to show that you are nervous should be curtailed. Things like shaking your leg, playing with your fingers, fidgeting with your hair, looking constantly at the time, looking around in the room are all signs of nervousness. So please avoid these signs as much as you can. Then make eye contact. Eye contact is extremely important. Now, there is a strong difference between making an eye contact and staring. Remember, eye contact shows sincerity, integrity and trustworthiness, while staring puts you in a very sticky spot. Staring is when you look at someone continuously without even blinking, without even nodding. Yes, someone has asked, is a blazer fine? Yes, Vishnu, you can wear a blazer if you want to, but however, do not go through the tedious process of going to buy one. If you have one, you can always wear a blazer. Okay, last, watch your body language. Now, your body language should be one that shows confidence and not fear and hesitation. So when you walk into the room, walk with your chin up. There should be a constant smile on your face. Okay, so Shubham asks, is wearing a tie compulsory? No, wearing a tie is not compulsory. Tie and blazers are two things that are not compulsory. You may or you may not wear a tie as long as you're wearing a shirt with tucked in trousers, a shirt that is tucked inside your trousers with a belt, well-polished shoes, a pair of socks, you are good to go. Blazers and ties are add-ons which you may or may not wear depending on whether you want to wear them. But you do not have to go to the tedious process of buying one. Okay, so we were talking about body language. So your body language is something that should show confidence and not fear or hesitation. You should, excuse me, your chin should be up, there should be a constant smile on your face, and you should look attentive that you are interested in what the person on the other hand is saying. Okay, Rohan has just asked us the color of the shoes and whether he can wear a watch. I'll start with the watch. Like we already discussed, you can wear a watch as long as it's not very blingy. So yes, a watch is a definite yes. Black shoes, you can wear black or brown shoes depending what goes with the color of the trousers that you are wearing. In ideal circumstances, it is advised that the color of your belt and the color of your shoes go on to match each other. Okay, let's go ahead. So in this presentation today, we will be covering four major topics after we have discussed, of course, the dress code, handshake, small talk during interviews, demonstrate self-introduction, and list of expected technical and HR questions and help you prepare their corresponding answers. Okay, now we all know that the minute we actually enter, the minute you actually walk into the interview room, you usually say, please may I come in? And the interviewer will always ask you to come in. The minute you enter, you first actually start by greeting the people who are there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on whatever time of the day it is. Now, one very tricky question that arises here is that what if there is a panel that is actually sitting out there? There is more than one person who is out there. So you wonder whether to wish each of them individually or to wish each of them in a group. Now, this is a call that you have to take at that moment. However, if it is advisable that you wish all of them at the same time. Good morning to all of you, good afternoon to all of you, good evening to all of you. So this is how you can actually wish all of them. Then, the next thing, one of the best ways to greet each other professionally is actually by shaking hands. Now, the way you actually shake your hands with someone can give out a lot about your personality. It can say a lot about you as a person. It can say a lot about your sincerity, about your seriousness. So therefore, the way you shake your hands is of equal importance. So let us look at the various different kind of handshakes that are actually out there, and what each kind of handshake says, and what an ideal handshake should actually look like. So we will actually start with the different kind of handshakes that are there. The first kind of handshake that you can see on your computer screen is the handshake that we generally call as the pull handshake. Now, this handshake is when one person tries to pull you towards him or her in the course of shaking your hands. Now, this kind of handshake is reflective of someone who's a controller, who is highly manipulative and is not a very good team player. So therefore, refrain from any kind of handshake in which you apply a certain kind of force which pulls the person towards yourself. The second kind of handshake is a two-handed handshake, where what happens is a person extends their hand towards us. We take their hand and we cup our hand over their other hand and use both our hands to actually shake the hand. This is called the two-handed shake. Refrain from this too, because this handshake is a sign of someone who is trying to make you believe something which is not true. Okay, so in the middle of all this, Pranam has asked us a question that should he actually go on and approach for the handshake? Now, ideally, when you enter an interview room, it is you are expected to actually move out your hand and reach for a handshake. So it is good if you actually take the first initiative to shake hands with the interview panel. So like we were coming back to the second kind of handshake that we were discussing, the two-hand handshake. It is not advisable. Often we think that this handshake is very, very polite, but it is not. It is the sign of someone who is highly manipulative. So please refrain from this one too. The third handshake is the one of the topper. In this, the person who is shaking hands gives his hands from the top. This is a sign of someone who is very dominant, a person who is in charge. It signifies power. Now, if you get to shake hands of someone who shakes hands with you like this in your interview panel, you have to understand that that person is at a really high designation and is scrutinizing every bit of what you are doing. The second handshake in this slide, actually the fourth kind of handshake that we are discussing, is known as the palm pinch. In this handshake, you just give a little bit of your fingers and not your whole hand. This kind of handshake is symbolic of fear, that you are not comfortable in new surroundings, you are not comfortable with new people. The people who have this kind of handshake the people who have handshake of this kind are usually introverts and do not have good interpersonal skills. Now, someone has just asked us a question that what do you do when a panelist is really elder to you and you want to shake hands? Shaking hands is a sign of professionalism. Therefore, there is no harm in shaking hands if there is someone really senior to you in terms of age who is sitting out there in the interview panel. So now that we have seen that these are the kind of handshakes that we should not do, let us actually discuss the kind of handshake that is advisable, the kind of handshake that we should actually do. Okay, now sorry, there are two more kinds of handshakes that we should discuss: the finger squeeze and the bone crusher. Now, in both these kinds of handshake are symbolic of people who want to dominate the other and who believe that physical strength is actually a display of the kind of power that they display. So again, finger crushing or bone crushing handshakes are a big no-no. So what should a good handshake be like? A good handshake has to be firm. It should not be something that has one that has no force, one that is really lopsided, but at the same time it should not give pain should not crush the hand, the bones, the fingers of the other person. An ideal handshake lasts for about 3 seconds, which may be moved thrice from your elbow. 2 movements from your elbow would just be appropriate. Now, often we don't know when to actually move our hand back if we are still talking to the person. If you think you have shook hands for about 3 minutes, you have pumped it twice from the elbow, it is advisable that you pull your hand back even if the conversation that was started over the handshake still continues. One very important thing that we have to remember during shaking hands is to make eye contact, because like I mentioned before, eye contact is representative of honesty and integrity. Therefore, it is extremely important that you make eye contact when you actually start, that you make eye contact. Okay, so moving ahead, the next thing that usually happens after this is then you have to start a conversation. Then the next thing that comes into head is that what is the ideal way to start a conversation? You say something, should you expect the interviewer to ask you something? Now, a very interesting way to begin the conversation, to begin your interview, is something that we know as small talk. Now, what exactly is small talk? What do you do in small talk? Small talk is just a small conversation that you strike with someone in the interview panel to ensure that both of you are comfortable. Usually, someone from the interview panel initiates a small conversation, or often they ask you a simple question like, "So, how are you?" A simple question like "So, how are you?" is often nothing but just a starter for a small talk. So let us go on to see what small talk is and what is an ideal way to do a small talk. Okay, coming to small talks during interviews. The main purpose of the small talk is to get both the parties to relax with each other. Okay, now what do? A small talk is generally used as for the opening of an interview session to fill any awkward silences that may sometimes be there. Small talk is a friendly piece of conversation, and for you as a person, for someone who's giving the interview, it is a very useful tool to understand the mindset of the person who is out there, who is interviewing you. Now, there are certain do's and don'ts during small talks. Small talks can be very simple. You could just be talking about weather to each other. You could be talking about, let us say, the traffic that is there. If it's been raining too much, if there is too much traffic, if anything that is a day-to-day conversation topic that is out there. But be very clear that you refrain from anything that is about politics and religion, because these are 2 topics that you should refrain from discussing with anyone at work. Second, curb your enthusiasm. For example, so they ask you, "So do you watch a certain sport?" You say yes. They say, "Did you watch the match last night?" And let us say they were speaking to you about a cricket match and you were really excited about it. Curb your enthusiasm. Curb your enthusiasm and then tell them that yes, the match was really nice, and whatever your feedback on the match is. Param here asks us a question. So what if they ask, "How are you?" Usually these kind of questions are asked when you shake hands with them. So you can very simply answer, "I'm very good, sir or ma'am. I'm excited, I'm looking forward to this interview. I'm expecting something really good out of it." You can just give them simple answers like this. So therefore, use the small talk as a very powerful medium to understand the interviewer. Now, what are the do's and don'ts during a small talk? You must listen extremely genuinely in a very interested way to what they are saying. At no point should anyone in the interview panel feel that you are not interested in what they are saying. You must nod your head to show appreciation, to show interest in what they are saying. It is not wrong if you actually go ahead and prepare a few topics or lines for your small talk. You might just be very lucky that you may just find a common ground where both of you, which you may like to discuss with the interview panel. However, you have to be very, very careful that the small talk does not extend to be an ideal gossip session. Do not forget that you are in there to give an interview and not to get all chatty and talk and gossip and chat about something that you like. So this is a very thin borderline that you must, draw. Okay, now what are the don'ts? What are the things that you have to be very careful not to do? Don't ask questions which are considered trivial being useless or too personal. Let us say if you have to give the interviewer the freedom to ask you something personal. However, you cannot ask the interviewer anything personal. Let us say the interviewer may ask you that the cricket match that was played last night, Sehwag played a brilliant innings. What do you have to say about it? Virat Kohli played a brilliant innings. What do you have to say about it? You may give your comments, but it is not advisable that you go back to this question and ask the interviewer, sir, what did you have to think about it? What is your opinion about it? Refrain from questioning the interviewer at any point. Also, do not ask many closed questions. Closed questions being rhetorical questions, questions that have obvious answers. Let's say India won a match last night. Don't say things like, wasn't it a wonderful match? Oh, what a lovely match, wasn't it? These are obvious questions. You may ask one or two, but do not ask too many of such questions. Lastly, look at the interviewer, nod your head, look interested, look at him, maintain an eye contact with him, but do not look around in the room when you are in a conversation. It is not advisable that you look at them, that you look around in the room and not pay attention to the people who are actually taking your interview. Let's move ahead to something that we all know as body language. Now, body language can sometimes play a very, very, very extremely crucial role in the way you present yourself in an interview. Often what happens is we say something and we react in a certain way. Often there's a discrepancy between what we are saying and the way we are behaving. This is something that really ticks off the interviewer and is a huge negative in it's a huge demotivating factor for the interviewer to actually select you. It is something that may often fetch you a lot of negative marks. So refrain from having that kind of difference between what you say and what your body says. There are a couple of no-nos that you should absolutely follow during an interview. Smile. Please smile. Smiling is one of the most important things during any interview. Do not look tensed. You should not be tense, nervous, anxious. Any of those feelings are feelings, I know. Such feelings are really obvious. We all go through a tremendous flow. It's like a mix of all these feelings. There's excitement, there's nervousness, there's fear. Please ensure that you do not display any of these feelings. Look interested. Look interested in everything that they are asking you, that they are telling you. It is okay if they ask you a certain question, you could not hear it, you could not comprehend it. There is nothing wrong if you say, sir, could you please repeat the question? Ma'am, could you please repeat this question? I'm sorry, could you just repeat? I'm sorry, I could not get what you said. There is nothing wrong in saying anything like that. Do not play with your fingers. Often some of us have a habit where we play with our fingers, we cuddle, we clip our fingers together and we punch them, things like that. Refrain from anything like that. Johnson has just asked us a question as to how you should sit. I am coming to that, Johnson. So just coming to a couple of don'ts that you should do, just after I discuss the don'ts, the things that you should not do. Do not play with your fingers. Often we carry a folder or things like that with us when we go inside. So do not fidget with the folder. Do not fidget with the folder. Do not tear, do not play with the paper. Do not make clicking sounds of the pen. Girls, this is especially common amongst girls. Do not fidget with your hair. Do not play with your hair. All these things are big tick-offs. Make eye contact with them at every point and ensure that you sit comfortably but attentively. Now, it is a bad idea to lean back, get all comfortable and sit in a chair, but at the same time, you must sit comfortably. Now, we were asked by Johnson that what is an appropriate way to sit. It is advised that the boys that you sit on the chair, for boys there can be some distance between your legs. Boys, it's a big no-no for you to put one leg on top of the other. It's a big no. It's a sign of pride. Refrain from it. Girls, you must sit on the chair with no distance between your legs like this, and you may put one leg on the top of the other. This is something that girls can do, but for boys, this is a big no. And like I have been continuously telling you, eye contact is really, really important during an interview. It is something that represents truthfulness, trustworthiness, and honesty. So please ensure you do that. So like we discussed the do's and the don'ts, some of the big do's are make frequent eye contact, smile. If you think that there is something that someone in the interview panel is saying, you must take notes. I repeat again, smile. Very, very important. Do not let them get any idea about how nervous you are. The turbulent emotions that they are going inside you during an interview, just keep them to yourself. Keep your hands out of your pocket, and please keep your hands out of your pocket. Don't slouch. Slouch means bend your shoulders, look disinterested, or sit extremely comfortably in the chair. Do not cross your arms. Crossing your arms and sitting is a sign of someone who is not open to new ideas, someone who is not very keen of opening up, someone who is not comfortable of working in a big team. So refrain from sitting like that. Do not tap your feet or do not shake your feet. Some of us have a horrible habit of continuously shaking our legs, which is a clear sign of nervousness. Refrain. Do not clear your throat. It is all right if you have to cough, you have to sneeze. Say, excuse me, it is only normal. But do not clear your throat. If you think you need a glass of water, you may ask the interview panel, please may I have a glass of water? There is nothing wrong in it. Do not bite your lips, your nails, or play with them. And yes, please ensure that your cell phone is in the switched off or on the vibration mode. You should not be in such a situation where you are giving your interview and your phone buzzes in the middle. This is a big no-no. And let's say your phone is on the vibration mode, your phone is continuously ringing or someone's pinging you on Facebook, WhatsApp. Please avoid all of that. For the couple of minutes, for those 5-10 minutes where you are with the interview panel, you should absolutely forget that you have a cell phone in your pocket. So yes, body language. Now, after body language, the first question, that's something that all of us are usually asked is, tell us something about yourself. Self-introduction. One question that actually should be the easiest for all of us to answer, but sends all of us into a big tizzy. So what is a good answer for a question that says, tell me something about yourself? Now, when someone in the interview panel is actually asking you that question, they want to know about your educational qualification, if you have had any professional experience at all, what are your expectations from your professional life, and how are you as an individual? What is the social information he or she can get about you? Social information could mean where do you come from, which place do you belong to, what are the things that you enjoy, what are your interpersonal skills, how do you relate with other people. Things like that form a part of your social information. And of course, This question is one of the best ways to judge your verbal skills as to how good you are in terms of communication, because it is this question where you actually market yourself the most, because no one can market yourself better than you. So how should you actually go on to handling this question? The first thing that you do once you enter into a room is exchange pleasantries. Now, once you have exchanged pleasantries, the next thing that you do is give your name. Now, usually sometimes after giving your name, you must wait for them to start small talk or ask you a question. Usually it is then when the next question is asked, which is tell me something about yourself. So you can once again repeat your name, tell them that your name is this, and then go on to tell them about your education, about your educational details. Where did you pass out from? Which is the school that you went to? If there's a certain specialization of sorts that you have done, then you should go and talk about your accomplishments. Since education, the kind of education that most of us have had is pretty much similar. There's not going to be a lot of difference in terms of that. So therefore, go on and focus on your accomplishments. Now, the next question, the question that comes in all our minds here is that exactly what should you say when it comes to talking about accomplishments? Now, we all may have done something interesting in life. Some of you might have been sports persons. Some of you might have been involved in the organizing committee in various fests and festivals in your schools and colleges. Some of you might have been, let us say, working with NGOs. Some of you might be creative by disposition. So this is the place to actually go on and tell the people in the interview panel of the special skill set that you possess. Also, if you have played any sport, it is a good point to tell them this, because there are a lot of tournaments that are held where these banks like to send in their teams and sports are played. So they actually often motivate and encourage people that play such sports. Therefore, it is highly advisable that you go on and tell them about your accomplishments. Next that comes is your skill set. Now, what are the things that you should say in your skill set? Now, ideally your skill set comprises of things like good communication skills, intrapersonal skills, you're a team worker, you can adjust in new places. Now, when you say things like this, please be very, very, very careful about what you say here, because often what happens is that we end up saying many things, and later when we say something else, there is a clear discrepancy between what you have said earlier and what you're saying now. Let me give you a couple of examples. We have usually realized that there are 4 or 5 skills that everyone has, that everyone likes to mention in interviews, and those skills are usually, let us say, good communication skills. You are a good team worker. You can work under high pressure situation, and you can adjust in any kind of circumstances. So these are the 4 or 5 and you are hardworking. Great. Starting with good communication skills, you must realize that the minute you actually step into your interview, you speak your first couple of lines, the panel will absolutely be able to realize how your communication skills are. Therefore, mention this only and only if you have good communication skills. Next in line is that you can work in a team. If you are someone who doesn't open up easily, who's an introvert, who doesn't talk to people easily, do not mention that you are open to the idea of working in a big team. At the same time, don't also say that you cannot work in a big team. Just evade this issue totally. The third thing that we mentioned is that you can adjust. You can adjust in any circumstances. Let us say you say a yes to this now, but later on during the course of the interview, if they ask you a question like, are you ready to shift to another city or to another town? Would you be comfortable if we post you in a branch that is in a rural area? And then you say no to this question. Then there will be a clear discrepancy between what you had said earlier and between what you are saying now. Therefore, refrain from things like this at all. Also, a couple of mistakes that a lot of us make is that when we are asked about our hobbies, one hobby that is by default we'll find on most of your CVs is something known as reading. Now, refrain from saying things, avoid saying things that you don't actually do. Only talk about your hobbies, only write those hobbies, things that you are genuinely interested in. Because if you actually write things that you're not interested in and the panel goes ahead and questions you on them, you will be in a soup. You will not know what to say to them. Therefore, be very, very careful when you talk about your hobbies and your skills. Last is a closing line, the way you should actually go on to close your description or the answer to the question, tell me something about yourself. Trivikram, I will just come to your question that if we can mention about your past hobbies. Just let me complete what I'm saying. I will just address your question. Okay. So like we were saying, what would an ideal closing statement be? An ideal closing statement would be something like that you are looking forward to, acquiring new skills, learning new skills, so that you can scale up your career, you can grow in your career, you can be successful, you can grow, you can continue learning. Now, coming to the question that Reddy asked, that can you mention any hobbies that you had in the past? I would like to, Vikram, just bring to your light here that hobby is something that you genuinely enjoy doing. So it cannot be a hobby, something that you had in the past and something that you do not enjoy now. So refrain, avoid mentioning. It is advisable that you do not mention anything that is not a hobby now. You could say, you could say something like that initially when you had more time on your hands, you would do a lot of this, but you still enjoy it and you do not have still so much time to be able to still enjoy it. But do not say that this was something that you did in the past and, you do not do anymore. So yes, so let's move ahead in terms of self-introduction. Okay. Now, what are the other questions that they can ask you about yourself? Some questions can often be like questions about yourself. You must remember, always target your education, work experience if you have any, and what are the kind of career goals that you have. Now, so after doing the question, something like tell me about yourself, some questions can be like what is your greatest strength or weakness? Now, you must remember that it is good to highlight your strengths and it is equally good to accept your weaknesses. You must remember that we all have weaknesses. Identifying your weakness is the first sign towards working towards them, towards success. Now, it is just like saying that when you go to a doctor first actually diagnoses what your problem is, because only after he has diagnosed the problem that you have can he work on it, can he give you medicine, can he treat it. Just like that, you can tell the people in the interview panel that you have identified your weaknesses and you are working on them. You are working to make them your strengths. Now, coming to the first part of the question, what is your greatest strength? Your greatest strength could be, the fact that you are hardworking, you are adjusting, you are a team player. It could be any of these. Don't just state your greatest strength. Give an example, give a situation, talk to them about an incident, about a situation where you actually displayed this. Where you actually displayed your strength, something that highlights your strength. Now, coming to the third question that you see on your screen, why did you choose to interview with us? Now, this is where your knowledge of the company, how much research you have actually done on the bank comes into play. You should actually state facts about them. They could be one of the largest banks in the public sector, in the private sector. They could be doing very well in terms of employee satisfaction. They could have a very high employee satisfaction ratio. They could have a great work ethics. It is things like this which you should say based on your research about the organization in a question like this. The next question that you can be asked is about your short and long-term career goals. Now, your short-term goal might just be actually to get your job, since for most of you it is going to be your first job. Now, and your long-term, so you actually have to tell them that your short-term goal is to work in an organization that helps you grow your strengths and work on your weaknesses. That is the kind of a balanced answer that you should give them. And for your long-term career goals, usually short-term career goals refer to the kind of goals that you want to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years, and long-term career goals range from anything about 8 to 10 years. So this is the kind of answer that you should, so your answer should be around these lines. Okay, so Param here has asked us a question that if they ask you, how are you improving, or what courses are you doing? Or Natasha asks us, ma'am, what should we say if they ask us, why do you want to join a bank as PO and not as a specialist officer if you are from technical background? Last year she appeared in a certain interview and she was asked this question. All right, so when you go to them and you say that you could simply say that your current skill set does not give you the confidence to actually go ahead as a specialist officer, because you feel that if you join as a PO, as a probationary officer, you will be given a specialized training, and that training is going to help you to decide to not only grow, learn, but also help you to decide as to which field in the bank, which vertical in the bank you want to work ahead in. Romika asked us a question that she says she was a quizzer in college and won many prizes. So where should we mention this? Ronika, I think you've joined us a little late. You should mention this in your introduction, in your accomplishments. You can tell them that you are someone who is well aware of your, of things around you. You're well aware of your surroundings. You are continuously growing, learning. Yes, like Rohan has said, it is something that helps you to grow and learn. Okay. Now last, what do you know about our company? Again, the answer to this question will be based exactly on the research that you have done. So it is highly advisable that once you get your call for the interview, you spend some time on the internet, read about the company, do some research. Okay. Coming to certain things that you should, certain points that your body language, the way you talk, should pass on during an interview. There should be enthusiasm and excitement in your voice. At the same time, do not overdo your enthusiasm and excitement. You should be enthusiastic. You should be telling them that, yes, I'm looking for your voice, the way you talk should be telling them that, yes, you are keen to work with them, you are enthusiastic, you are looking forward to this opportunity. At the same time, you should not sound desperate. So ensure you draw that line. Next, ensure that you are able to get your ideas across to them in a very clear and a coherent way. Do not twist around your sentences. Do not use long sentences. Use short and simple sentences to convince them, to portray to them, to get across to them what you want to say. Answer difficult questions convincingly. It is okay if you're asked a difficult question, you take a 5 to 8 second gap to frame your answer. But be confident while answering it. There should be no sign of nervousness on your face even when you're answering a difficult question. And remember, nobody knows you better than you, your own self. Therefore, nobody can market you in a better way than you yourself. Therefore, leave no stone unturned to convince them that you are actually the best person for this job. Now, they may often give you situational questions. These situational questions may be related to you. They may ask you how you have behaved in the past in certain situations, or certain situations or conditions that you have had to face. So questions can be simply like, describe a time when you had to make a difficult decision. Now, for a question like this, you are often very confused whether to talk of a personal situation or to talk of a professional situation. It is advisable that you talk of a professional situation. However, if you think that there is nothing you can think of at that moment, then you may speak of a personal situation. Second, Tell me about a time when you worked under a deadline. They are very keen on questions like this because questions like this tell them how well you can actually handle deadlines. So you must tell them that when a certain deadline was given to you. So for this question you will get some lovely example from your college lives. You may have to submit assignments, projects, work in groups. So you can go ahead and tell them about any of those deadlines that you have met. What do you do when a team member is not pulling in his or her weight? I hope all of you understand what is meant by this question. This question basically means that when you work in a team, when someone does not perform the role that has been ascribed to him or her, what do you do? So remember that such questions are usually meant to test how well do you keep your cool, whether you lose your temper easily, whether you are a people's person. So remember, you must answer these such questions in a very, very balanced way. Then think about a time you made a mistake. What did you learn from it? Now, do not make the mistake of saying that I've never made a mistake. We are human beings. We've all made mistakes in our lives. So think of a time, again advisable that you give examples from your professional life and not from your personal life. So you can go ahead and tell them that yes, this was a certain time you made a mistake, and that mistake you could easily link to a weakness that you have stated before, and you could say that this is when you identified your weakness and you decided to start working on it. Let's move ahead. Okay. So whenever they ask you to speak about your strengths, like I mentioned before, come up with stories. Come up with a story, an incident that displays to them, that tells them about the skills and the strength that you have. You could actually use statements like this. I have always been glad that I have the ability to, let us say, I have the ability to work in a team and ensure that everyone in the team performs to the best of their ability. My greatest achievement this year or in the last couple of years was that I managed to, let us say, come up with it could be your college that you managed to make a team in you established a new club in your college. It was something that people had been wanting to do for really long, and you're creative, you got people together and did. One of my skills that I hope to use in my workplace is, it could be any skill. It could be, let us say, about how you're very diligent, how you're very organized, how you're very good at motivating people. So like I said, always try and emphasize on your strengths and show how your strengths will take you ahead in your current requirements. Now, the next set of questions that usually there are about are your technical questions now. For technical questions, it is very important that you do your research. You are well aware of the terms that are there. You must remember that often the way you handle your technical questions can be the deciding factor in whether you get through an interview or not. Now, one thing that you must always remember is that answer confidently. At the same time, if you do not know the answer to a question, there is no harm in accepting that you do not know the answer to this question. So yes, boys and girls, this was pretty much about the etiquettes, the body language, the way that you should actually handle an interview session. So I'm open to questions now. We just have a question here from someone who says that what if they are from a different stream? They have done their engineering, they are from the they're from an MSc background, from the science background. How do you handle such a question when they ask you? You can go on and clearly tell them that, you are looking forward, organization, operations, finance, these are things that attract you. You can tell them that you are looking forward to work in economics, you're looking forward to work in the banking sector. This is where your interest lies. These are the things that attract you. You can say that you enjoy organizing things, you're into operational things. So you can pick up any certain vertical of the bank which actually got you interested into this job and tell them that it is because of this that you want to work in a bank. So are there any more questions out there that you guys would like to ask? Any more questions out there? Okay, so with this we come to the end of the session for today. I hope today's session was useful for you guys, and it'll help you clear your interviews. Good luck, do well, bye-bye, take care.
Quantitative aptitude for the IBPS clerk's main exam, brought to you by TalentSprint. I hope all of you are healthy. All of you must be thorough with all the concepts across all the topics already, right? And the fact that you have already cleared the IBPS clerk's prelims exam shows that you know the concepts really well, at least in the subjects of quantitative aptitude or numerical ability, the reasoning ability and English language section.
I'm Sarmishta with your weekly dose of current affairs. So let's see what's happening in the national news. India has outgunned Russia and Saudi Arabia to become the world's fourth largest defense spender. This is according to the recently released 2016 IHS Jane's Defense Budgets report.